Hey up guys! So today on the channel I'm going to be discussing a new Netflix series called Jupiter's Legacy. It's a comic book series based off a comic book by Mark Millar. Comic book series based off a comic book. Who knew? It's available to watch on Netflix as of today, May 7th, 2021. I took a special interest in this series because I actually know one of the main cast members in the series. Sounds a little braggy, doesn't it? Oh yes, I know one of the stars of Jupiter's Legacy. How cool am I? I know a celebrity. But in all seriousness, Andrew Horton, who plays Paragon or Brandon Sampson in this series, he and I worked together on a movie a few years back called How to Talk to Girls at Parties. We both played aliens. He was a throat singer. I was a simpleton. Absolutely lovely guy. I'll say this. He is as lovely as he is ridiculously good looking. He is a very attractive chap, as you will see if you do watch Jupiter's Legacy. He takes his top off and I was saying to him, his obliques, good lord. It's a strange feeling seeing somebody you know on a thumbnail for a Netflix series, as a superhero no less. But yeah, I'm so happy for him, so proud, congrats to you matey. But yeah, I brought up the fact that I knew Andrew, not because I wanted to brag about it, but because I did want to acknowledge my biases when it comes to talking and reviewing the series that he's in, because yeah, it's hard for someone to be objective when you have an emotional connection to someone that worked on it or is in it, but I am going to try and be as fair and objective as I possibly can. I watched all 8 episodes of Volume 1, and what did I think of it? Well, I'm going to tell you the exact same thing that I told Andrew, and that is that I enjoyed it, but I wasn't blown away by it. There were parts of it that I really, really loved, like seeing Andrew flying around on screen, kicking ass. That was awesome. But as an objective viewer, I did find the series overall a bit underwhelming, and that's because Volume 1 kind of feels like setup for bigger things to come. Volume 1 is set across the space of 100 years or so. It's set in the modern day present, but also has flashbacks to the 1930s. The series is an origin story of sorts as to how the Union of Earth's first superheroes got their powers, but it is a long journey just to answer a simple question as to how they got their powers in the first place. In the present day, these superheroes are revered elder gods, but their superpowered children are having difficulty living up to the legendary feats of their legendary parents. When the Union of Superheroes was forged in the 1930s, their leader, Sheldon, or the Utopian, who's played by Josh Duhamel, came up with a code of sorts for them to follow. Their code, or their values, were essentially for the greater good. They were all about due process and not killing enemies. It's a very pure and idealistic way of looking at the world. It's very Superman in a sense, and you can tell the story is a little bit influenced by Superman. You just have to look at the Sampson household. They grew up on a farm. It's very Clark Kent and Martha Kent on the farm. The only thing is, these values don't feel as applicable to the modern day as they did back in the 1930s. It's a very old-fashioned way of looking at the world. It's certainly more optimistic, but it's also a bit naive. Things just aren't as simple or as binary as black and white, good versus evil. It's way more complex than that. And Sheldon and Grace's kids, Brandon and Chloe, they question this entire system that, they've been raised upon. They don't 100% agree with it. Their son, Brandon, played by Andrew Horton, he's training to become the next Utopian, so he's going to take over after his dad, but he doesn't fully agree with the line in the sand rule about not killing enemies, because sometimes in the heat of battle, it's kill or be killed, and your enemies won't always show you the same mercy that you show them. And their daughter Chloe, who's played by Elena Camporis, who has a fair share of parental issues, having had famous superhero parents who apparently weren't around that much when they were kids, she's detached herself from the superhero duty. Instead of fighting alongside with her family, she's a rebellious, substance-abusing burnout who's capitalized on the fame that's come from her lineage to forge a successful modeling career out of. But yeah, she's one of the more messy and complex characters in the show, and therefore one of the most interesting. So yeah, the show does explore some interesting contradictions regarding codes, ethics, and ideologies, but it's nothing that we haven't really seen done before in the MCU. Like power and responsibility, that's just Spider-Man, and the grey areas in black and white, old-fashioned values, that's very Captain America. And I guess that's why I wasn't more impressed with Jupiter's Legacy, because while it does have something to say, it's not anything that we haven't heard before. Plus, in the heavily saturated superhero market of 2021, when you're competing against such giants like Disney Plus and Marvel peddling out huge cinematic shows like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki, as well as other popular superhero shows like The Boys, Invincible, and The Umbrella Academy, you picking up what I'm putting down? Yep, we are just spoiled for choice. There is too many options out there, and if your show doesn't have anything that original or unique to offer the viewer, then it's like, why do I bother? You have to give us something new. And with Jupiter's Legacy, I'm not sure what it's got which sets it apart from all the other competition. But that's why I'm hoping that Jupiter's Legacy gets a second season, because it doesn't feel like a whole lot actually happens in the first. We take a very long route to answer a very basic question, which is, how did the superheroes get their powers in the first place? And to be honest, the 8-episode journey that it takes to answer this very straightforward question doesn't feel like you get a lot of returns for such a big investment of time. Like, it was fine, I thought it was okay, but again, I just wasn't blown away by it. But now that we have that answer, they're setting the stage for a much grander story. There's a lot of characters in this show, and I'll say this, the casting of the series is fantastic, but a lot of these characters feel so underdeveloped, even by episode 8. Like, the characters who get the most to work with in this series are Josh Duhamel, who plays Sheldon, aka the Utopian, his wife, Grace, who's played by Leslie Bibb, who's also known as Lady Liberty, their daughter, Chloe, played by Elena Kampouris, and then Sheldon's brother, Walter, who's played by Ben Daniels, and his character is also known as Brainwave. There are the 4 that really get the meatiest stuff to work with. Sadly, Andrew's character, Brandon, I thought was still a little bit underdeveloped. I wanted to see more from him. Like, his character is living in his father's shadow, and he's also questioning his dad's moral compass. Like, there's really interesting internal conflict there, and I was just saying to Andrew, I feel like his character needed a few more scenes just to show off those clashing contradictions and how he's been pulled in different directions. So yeah, I wanted to see more from Brandon. He's even absent from 2 episodes. I was just like, where's Andrew Horton at? Why are you doing my man a disservice? So yeah, his character has a lot of potential. I just don't think he was given enough to work with in season 1. But he still gives a cracking performance. But remember, biased. And then there's others like Matt Lanter's Skyfox, Mike Wade as the Flare, Tanika Davis as the Flare's daughter, Tyler Main as potential antagonist Black Star, as well as David Julian Hirsch as Blue Bolt. You've got all these supporting characters who are quite frankly wasted. I didn't feel attached or emotionally invested in any of them, sadly. And that's just because they don't have a whole lot to do this season. At the moment, the majority of the characters are like cardboard cutouts. They're very one-dimensional, but I'm hoping if there is a season 2, they will flesh out these characters and, you know, make them more 3-dimensional. The only supporting character who I thought had a bit of intrigue and depth to was Ian Quinlan's Hutch. He was a very mysterious and interesting character. I definitely would like to see more of his character. I'll say this, the acting is decent all around, it's just the script doesn't give many of the actors many opportunities to shine. And no amount of action-packed spectacle can substitute for character depth and development. The action scenes are quite decent in the series, but I will say, you can tell they don't have the same budget as, say, what the MCU can afford to spend on their action scenes. Like, some of the CGI isn't as convincing or as jaw-dropping as what we see in the MCU, but still, I was entertained during the action scenes. There's also not a lot of humor in this series. I don't really recall laughing that much throughout. It was a little bit dry. I will say that the costume designs by Lizzie Wolfe are fantastic, and the score by Stephanie Economou is fabulous as well. So credit where credit is due. But overall, the first series of Jupiter's Legacy mostly feels like introductions and setup. It's just a lot of exposition and backstory. I'm ready to see where the story goes next though. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? I personally would, because Andrew Horton is in it and I will never get bored of watching him. But I will say this, if I didn't have a friend who was in the show, I don't know if I'd feel the need to revisit the series. Like, I just don't have that much personal investment in the show so far, but I will be watching season 2. And again, it's because I'm biased and I actually have, you know, a friend in the show. So yeah, it's not, the question is moot. Question number 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Again, I am completely biased here. There's no way for me to be objective, but I do want people to watch this because I want it to be a success for Andrew's sake. I would say give the first 2 episodes a watch and you'll know by that point if it's for you or not. So yes, give it a watch, guys, and yeah, give it a fair chance is all I'd say. And the third question, what score do I give it out of 10? There's nothing outright bad about this series, but it does feel a bit lacking. The cast, the costumes, the action scenes, the music, that's all great. And it does attempt to say something. The problem is, it's not saying anything all that new. The pacing is a bit slow, many of the characters I thought were underdeveloped, and comparatively to the smorgasbord of other superhero-related TV shows that we've got right now, it doesn't particularly stand out as anything that exceptional or original. So I'm going to give Series 1 of Jupiter's Legacy a score of 5.5 out of 10. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I would love to hear your thoughts on the first season of Jupiter's Legacy. What did you make of it? Let me know in that comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars content, don't forget to click subscribe. And if you want to follow me on any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, all in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time.